I always mess it up.
It's
We're live.
okay.
We're live.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Micah.
I'm Toby. And listen, you're watching and listening to Dropping Nuggets with Micah and Toby, and I'm always the one messing it up. So if there's ever
Season
any
two.
technical season two, yeah, it's season two. It's season two. So look, notice we switched it up, Micah and Toby this time instead of Toby and Micah. So But I hate when I mess up the beginning part. I pride myself.
That's life. We go mess up. And what better way than with what's the word? Technical difficulties. So that's just showing the human in us.
But everybody who listens to me be like, Toby always got technical difficulties. Every time we watch him, it's technical difficulties.
It's okay.
It's all good though. But that's good. I
It's
like I
good.
like
Don't
how
do
you
my
threw that in
co-host,
there.
y'all. Don't do my co-host.
Yeah, I like how you threw that in there. I like how you transitioned to that right there. So what's been going on? I know we titled this like a time of encouragement. It's been a lot of stuff going on, especially in the world. Uh, this is our second season. Let's just go ahead and, we got to go ahead and clap about that one. We got to go ahead and get a little hand clap in there. You know what? This is funny. Look, check this out. I can do this. Check this out. Dope. See that hand clap? We got an audience, all that hand clapping going on. But like this is the second season. We did like 7 last year, which was pretty good. It's probably more than we realized. You know what I mean? But but a lot of stuff been going on, and we know we wanted to come on here and just say, hey, we wanted to encourage everybody, the people that's going to be watching. And I know that, Micah, you've been through some changes, since the last time we had an episode. And I think it would be good for you to kind of encourage people based on some of the things. Well, really one of the things, a few things, but a major thing that you experienced since the last time we had an episode. So go ahead. I'm gonna give you the platform. I'm gonna give it to you to encourage the people. Here we got Micah. She's getting ready to encourage. Y'all better be listening. Y'all better be paying attention. Y'all better be listening. And she's going to share with you some things that she experienced, and I think it will be very encouraging. Go, you got it. It's on you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Am I lagging?
January,
Are you lagging?
we lost. I don't know. Can y'all hear me?
I can
Hopefully
hear,
y'all can hear me.
but it's like it's a
Can you hear me
lag.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I think it might be lagging a little bit.
Okay. 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 Good old technical difficulties. Um, but in January of this year, I lost my grandfather unexpectedly. Um, it was not how I expected my January to be. Because if you know, January was when we started dropping nuggets last year. So January was supposed to be an amazing month for me. My mom and sister's birthday is in January. Like January is a happy month for us. Um, and we lost my grandfather unexpectedly. It was very hard for us all for several different reasons. And I went through a season of grief and depression. And it does not help that, January is a winter month, which we all know it gets darker early, it's cold. So, you have seasonal depression, all of those things. So, with all of that added, you throw in the loss of my grandfather, and it was a very tough time. I made it through. Some days I didn't know how I was going to make it through. A lot of days I did not want to make it through. Um, it would be times you could say, "Hey, how you doing?" And that would literally make me burst into tears. I was very fragile during that time. I was very angry. I was feeling all of the emotions that you feel with grief: denial, acceptance, all of those things. Um, but I have, I don't want to say I made it out. But what I did do is I did not allow grief and depression to become my identity. But I'm not going to sit here and say that it didn't. I'm not going to give you some story like, oh, I just, I made it through. Like, no, it was a battle, but I had to make a conscious effort that that was not going to be who I became, because it was quickly taken over. And we believe in transparency. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. It was some days I would be on day 2 or 3, no shower, in the same pair of pajama pants, you know, barely eating. The only thing I would do would be take my dog out, come back in the house, and that was it. Um, and my mom would be like, "You need to shower." And I'd be like, okay, or I'd say something snippy with her. And we allowed each other grace during that time.
Right.
Um, and it is hard for me to sit here as a 31-year-old woman and be like, yeah, y'all, I was going on day 2 or 3, not showering. But I'm telling you what I was truly dealing with in that time. And it's funny that the same things that, like, how people say it's the small stuff, like the small moments that make you cry or think about this person. Because I was thinking today is the first episode I'm doing since, we have lost my grandfather. I know, on Thursday nights, they would be sitting in that living room, and he would make sure my granny had her phone pulled up, and, they would be listening to it. But I did not find myself getting sad today. And that was like a really big thing for me, is that I am choosing and taking the active steps to not let grief and depression identify me.
That's that right there. It kind of reminds me when I told you about when I lost my grandmother. And I've lost some people in my life, but when I lost my grandmother, that was big. I struggled with that I still to this day kind of struggle, and I think a lot of people out there, if they was honest, they would be like, hey, I don't know if this grief completely goes away. You might manage it a little bit better, but you said something to me just now that stood out. How you did not let it impact your identity. Like, what do you mean by what do you mean by that part of it? You talking about did not impact my identity.
Ah, man. So, like I said, it would be days where I would just be a cloud of sadness. And when you saw me, you didn't see Micah. You would see emotions on me. And I would just be whatever I was feeling that day. So I wasn't showing up as the Micah that you all have seen on Dropping Nuggets, that my family know and love, that my coworkers know, that all of these other people know. That wasn't who you were seeing. You were seeing grief, you were seeing sadness, you were seeing anger, you were seeing depression, you were seeing all of these other things. And it made me think of, in the Old Testament, when King David's daughter Tamar is raped by one of her brothers. And because of that traumatic event that happened to her, it took away her identity. and it took away that she was a king's daughter. So she's a princess. When you are the daughter of a king, you're a princess. Because of this trauma that happened to her, it forever changed her life, and her identity was changed, and she became associated with her trauma. And so I was stuck in this like circle of being associated with my grief. And the crazy thing is the situation that brought me out of it had nothing to do with my grandfather at all. I'll never forget. It was the Friday before I was supposed to go back to work. I was laying in bed and I was just having a day. And my pastor called me and he said, "Hey, they are doing a segment. The local news, WJHL, is doing a segment of what does Black history mean to you?" And they asked me if I knew any local people that would be interested in doing it. And I thought of you. Would you be interested? And I love me a good spotlight, so I was like, of course, I'll be interested. I would love to do this, and I would love to talk about Black history and the importance of it. And I thought instantly, I was like, what a great way for me to honor my grandfather. He grew up in the Jim Crow era. He would share stories about how he remembered as a little boy having to hold his head down, things of that nature. So I was like, what a good way for me to honor him than to talk about the importance of Black history. So that was the instance. It literally, it did have something to do with him, but it didn't. It was like an opportunity, and it just it ignited something in me. I, went and I was like, oh, I'm be on the news. I gotta have me an outfit. I gotta do my hair. I gotta have my makeup. I gotta do all of this. But what it helped me do was get back to who Micah was and how people should see me and how I want people to see me for the most.
See. Now you're getting ready to stir me. Now you're getting ready to stir me. Your mom over here talking about you preaching. Because when I hear you talk about identity, the things you went through, it reminds me of, this is what I believe. This is just what I believe. I believe that before I say that, let me say this, because I realize everybody who watches Dropping Nuggets, everybody don't believe in this right here. Everybody don't believe in this right here, and there's some people that watch us that believe in the Bible, that they go to church. Then we got some people who are like, I don't know about church. I'm struggling with church. Or I'm pursuing this relationship with God. I'm uncertain. I'm not completely sure. But let me say this. What I'm about to say, we're going to come strictly from this book, okay? I'm going to encourage you strictly from this book, okay? And so it's something that you said about identity that reminds me of an encounter, okay? It reminds me of an encounter, which is, to me, the ultimate encounter that you experience, that I experience, that everybody experiences, I think, on a daily basis. And it is the battle for identity. It's the battle for your identity. In the Bible, in the book, okay, y'all? We in the book. Some of y'all know the story, some of you don't. When Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, right? I'm just going to summarize it. He was baptized by John the Baptist, and when he was baptized, he came up, and the Spirit descended upon him like a dove. And then there was a voice from heaven that said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." From that point, the Bible says that he was led into the wilderness. Matthew 3, for those who want to go and read it. Okay, so he was led into the wilderness to be what? Basically tempted by the devil, the Satan, the accuser. That's what it says. And when he gets in there into the wilderness, he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And all of a sudden he's weak, and here comes Satan, right? And then immediately Satan begins to attack what? His identity. He said, if thou be the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. Okay, now Jesus just heard the voice coming up out the water that this is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. And the enemy probably recognized that, either heard that voice or he realized that, you know what, this is the Son of God right here. So I'm going to test him. I'm a test him right now. Jesus was led into the wilderness for an identity test. He was led into the wilderness for an identity test. And I believe that if you read the Bible, there's only a couple places in the Bible where you actually see Satan come on the scene. One is in the garden. One is in the garden, okay? When he shows up as a serpent and he's questioning Adam's identity. The next time you see him, he shows up in the wilderness and he's questioning Jesus' identity. Your biggest test in life is identity. That's what I believe. He said, if thou be the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. Jesus said, listen, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then he come back and say, if thou be the Son of God, then he quotes scripture. If you read it, he quotes scripture to Jesus. The second time around, Jesus hits him with some more word. The third time around, he says, hey, if you bow down to me, I'll show you all this stuff. But then he left. But what I'm getting at is Jesus knew his identity. The enemy was constantly trying to see whether or not Jesus really knew who he was. And here's the thing. Jesus didn't have to prove nothing to the devil when it came to his identity. Not one thing. When he said, turn these stones into bread, Jesus didn't have to prove to him, turn those stones into bread. And so when I began to read that story, I began to realize that when you understand your identity, I ain't got to prove that to nobody. Because what we try to do is you try to turn the stone into bread to try to prove to people who you are. But see, when you know who you are, you will not allow, you don't have to prove your identity to anybody but yourself. That is it. The only person you got to prove your identity to is yourself. So I like what you just said, is that you went through a time where at one point, you know what, I wasn't Micah, you saw me this way. Again, identity. Your identity, even though you're grieving, even though you're going through changes, that's when the enemy will come at you when you're weak, or things will come up in your mind while you're weak to see whether or not you really know who you are. And it begins to question who you are. And then all of a sudden, you come to a place in your life where you're like, okay, wait a minute, wait 1 second. That ain't the Micah. That is not the Micah right there. This is the Micah. And when you pass that identity test, the enemy leaves you. He leaves you because he recognizes, I cannot get over on this person because she knows who she is. And I think that's the thing right now in the world we're in, is that it's important that we maintain who we are, especially I'm in the book now. I'm in the book, especially when it comes to who we are in Christ. And so every day of our lives, every battle we take, it's the same gimmick. It's the same gimmick, identity gimmick. The enemy just wraps it up in something different every time. He wrap it up in grief. He'll wrap it up in frustration. He'll wrap it up in depression. He'll wrap it up in, relationships breaking up. He'll wrap it all up in there to see whether or not he can get you to question who you are.
That's so true. And not only will he do that, he will intentionally put people in your life to when you having that breakthrough and you might be struggling, or you might even know who you are. Okay, Micah back on the good foot. Let me see if I can throw something in there, throw somebody in there that she considers a friend that will knock her off, and she will struggle with her identity. And I had someone reach out to me, and they had kind of went through something similar of what I had went through, and they were wanting to connect on that. Um, and they were still in a season of life where grief had become their identity. And although I had lost my grandfather this year, and although I had went through some things, God also was still doing so many great things in my life that I couldn't even I couldn't be mad if I wanted to. I couldn't, because he was like, I know your heart is broken. I know you feel bad right now, but I'm gonna bless you anyways. And I feel like that's when you see some of your biggest blessings, honestly, when you feeling low. But I remember I was talking to my sister and I was like, why me? Like, what is it about me that makes this person want to connect with me? And it wasn't me that they were wanting to connect to. They had choose to identify. They've lost their identity, and they thought that I had lost mine, and they wanted to connect on that. And that's what we see when people lose their identity and they don't know who they are. They connect with people for the wrong reasons, and that's why you hear people trauma bonding or things of that nature. Or then they're in a friendship, and 6 months later, the friendship has fallen out or the relationship has fallen out, and things of that nature. And it's because you are not truly identifying with the person, because you have not truly identified yourself. You don't know who you are.
Pretty much.
So since you don't know who you are, you didn't take the time to know who this person is. So therefore, yeah, and there is no discernment in the situation whatsoever. And then you also have to know one thing I'm real big on, and I wish my people were big on, is you have to know what your strengths and weaknesses are. One of my weaknesses is sometimes I'm not quick on the draw. Sometimes stuff might go over my head and I might be in bed and realize a few hours later, like, wait a minute.
Right.
That's what they meant by that. But I'll tell you who can pick something up immediately is my sister. So just about any interaction I have with somebody, I call my sister, because one, that's a built-in best friend, love her to pieces. So I call her and I'm always running stuff by her. And she quick to be like, my sister is a lawyer. She will tell you she is a paid interrogator. She go get the bottom of it. But because of that, I'm able to have that in my life. And now I'll be talking to her and she'll be like, no, Micah, that don't make sense because of this and this and this. And she'll be like, well, did you ask this? Did you think about that? And I'll be like, you know what? Wait a minute. You're right. But because I have that, it's able to keep me from walking into some situations and falsely identifying with somebody.
That's important. That's it. And see, that's why it's important that you understand who you are. And because you said something about your sister, you know the voices to go to. You know the voices to go to. When you don't know who you see, I'm gonna get back in the book. It says, Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow. So if I'm a sheep, I got to identify. First of all, I got to identify with that voice. And my whole purpose as a sheep is to do what? Discern voices. And so if I know who I am, meaning I know who I am in Christ, and I know that voice, I know what that voice sounds like, I know what it looked like per se, then a voice of a stranger I will not follow. And that's very difficult. When that discernment is very difficult when you don't know your identity, you don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? Because the Bible will tell you all day long that there's wolves in sheep clothing. You know, if you put that in context and go read it, put it in context, go read it. The wolves in sheep clothing, and it wasn't people that was outside back in the day that was outside of the religious folk. It was the religious folk that he was referring to. And sometimes that's one of the most difficult things to discern is a voice of somebody that you might go to church with. And you realize that this voice right here is, wait a minute, this voice might be strange because it's not in alignment with the voice that I recognize. You can be biblical, but not Christ-like. And that's where we are right now. I do believe in the time we're in. We got a lot of people who are biblical. They know Genesis to Revelation, but the problem is they don't truly know Jesus of the Bible. They don't know the voice of Jesus of the Bible. And our whole purpose is to be what? Is to be, for who he foreknew, he also predestined to be what? Conformed into the image of his son. My whole purpose in life is to be like Christ. So that means I got to do what? I got to know what Christ, how Christ moves. I got to know how Christ thinks. I got to know what Christ says. I got to do all of that so that when I hear a strange voice, I don't care where it's coming from. Because nowadays, where we are now in the time we're living in, that strange voice be coming directly from the pulpit, directly. Some of the things we've been going through, especially from a political standpoint, you know, people saying if you're blue, you're demonic. Your spirit, you're going to hell. If you're red, you're demonic. Your spirit, you're going to hell. That's strange. That's strange. That's a strange voice. That's a strange voice to me. And that's a voice that I cannot follow, period. So like you were talking about, like your sister, that's a voice that you know is going to lead you in the right direction that you need to go in. And I think if I had to encourage anybody, is that at this time that we're in right now, especially in these days, you got to find people with a voice, man, that's going to encourage you, a voice that's going to challenge you, a voice, like your sister said, Christ consciousness. You got to find some people who's going to have, that's going to be Christ consciousness, because the mind of Christ at the end of the day is a mind of love. And if that is not coming out, if that's not being shown, if that's not being talked about, bro, you strange to me. And see, when you don't know your identity, you don't recognize that love. You don't recognize that Christ consciousness. You don't recognize all those things. And what you constantly do is you will find yourself in the position where you are constantly trying to prove yourself to people when it comes to your identity. You looking for other people to verify who you are, versus like Jesus, when he heard the voice from the Father, that's all the verification he needed. That's all the verification he needed. And from time to time, he went to his disciples and said, hey, who do men say that I am? And they said, some people say you're the prophet, some people say you're Elijah. It wasn't like Jesus was asking them because he didn't know who he was. He was asking them so that they would know, making sure they knew who he was so that they could benefit from that relationship. And so, man, we're in a very interesting time. We are in a very interesting season. There's so much stuff that we can get on here and talk about that we know we ain't got time to talk about. But the biggest thing that I'm taking away from what you shared, Micah, is, listen, you're going to go through some stuff in your life. So, some things you don't even realize that you might be being led into the wilderness for a testing of your identity. Jesus was led by the Spirit. It was set up to be led to make sure that he knew who he was because of this next stage of his life. Look, sometimes you go into the wilderness, Spirit would take you there to make sure, because he knows what's getting ready to come down the pipe, to make sure that you know who you are before everybody. So before you get out of this wilderness, I need to make sure you know that before everybody start either telling you who you are or telling you who you're not. You got to make sure that you are in alignment with what God is saying about you and who you are, because that is what the enemy is after. He is after your identity. You got the last word. You got the last word. You started it off. See, I can get going. Both of us can get going. But you got the last word. I'm not going to say nothing else. You're going to last word. You're going to close it out. I promise you, I ain't going to say nothing else.
Man, first off, how do I even follow that up? Honestly, That was a mic drop. Um, but I quickly want to say, when we were talking about identity, one thing that also came to mind was the woman that was caught in adultery, because they never say who her name is. They just identify her as the woman caught in adultery. That's how she's identified. The men bring her to Jesus, and they talking about the law. The law say we got to stone her. Once again, we talking about identity, right? Her identity was that of an adulterer. So, Jesus, he says, okay, cool, we can do it. But he who without sin cast the first stone. So now they got to do what? Identify their sins. We identifying stuff. So, of course, he stooped down, he writing in the sand, and he asked her, says, "Woman, where are thine accusers?" And she says, "There are none." And he says, "Neither do I accuse you. Go and sin no more." He restored her identity in that moment. So even when because you go mess up. You go mess up. We all mess up, whether it is intentional or unintentional. You are going to mess up. We all fall short of the glory of God, always. But the thing is, we serve a God that can restore your identity. All you have to do is come to him. And sometimes somebody got to bring you. So know that sometimes the people in the church, although I do have my issues with them, sometimes the accusers was the ones that got her identity restored. Think if they wouldn't have brought her. They brought her to ridicule her, but through that, Jesus restored her identity. And he's the only one at the end of the day that can do that. So people, whatever it is that you are going through, if you do not know God, he is wanting to have a relationship with you, because that's a whole nother thing in itself, and we ain't gonna keep y'all, but we can go there too. But all you have to do is sit that time aside. Go into the wilderness. It is okay. Because once you do find your identity, then grief does not identify me anymore. Depression does not identify me. Anxiety does not identify me. Anger does not identify me. I am Micah. I am one of God's daughters. I am one of his chosen ones. I am loved. I am beautiful. I am all of these things. So I know who I am, and I control my identity. So people say what they want to about me. Yeah, she got a smart mouth. She be getting snippy with folks. People can say what they want to, but I know who I am. And because I know who I am, I let people talk. When you know who you are, man, you don't even care what somebody said. You can't even come tell me what nobody done said about me.
Come on.
So know your identity and be okay with it. And that's what I got for y'all. That's my final notes.
You dropped the final nugget. You dropped it. Until next time. Listen, we appreciate everybody that was on here. I see some people. Shout out my boy Stu. I see Jasmine on here. Other people on here. I think my daughter was on here at one point. I don't know if she's still on here. But all the people then that be following us, listening to us, listen, we're going to try to keep this thing as consistent as we possibly can moving forward this year. So we will be back. What's the third week in April? You got a calendar right there? The third Thursday. What's that? You got one? Let's see. So we'll be back. We will be back. So we're the third Thursday of every
give me
month. So it'll be the 16th.
Not my calendar
16th. I beat you.
That is going to be April 16th.
that lag. But yeah, April the 16th, we will be back. The 16th of April, man. We appreciate you guys.
You did. It's okay. It's okay.
We love you. We love you. And man, go encourage somebody. Love on folk, encourage people, drop them nuggets of encouragement on them 24/7. You see somebody going through something, man, don't hate on them. Man, awaken them to righteousness, awaken them to their identity. We love you. God bless you.